Silence filled the room. Heavy. Controlled. No one moved. No one breathed too loudly. Because Aaryan's question was not something anyone spoke to Lucien Ashvale casually. Especially not a young awakened. Yet Aaryan sat there calmly, one hand resting against the arm of the chair, eyes steady. Not challenging. Not submissive. Equal. And somehow, that made him more dangerous. Lucien watched him quietly, then, slowly, smiled. Interesting. The pressure in the room eased slightly. Not gone, but restrained. Good. That meant Lucien wasn't impulsive. Aaryan expected that already. Someone who reached rank 6 would never be ruled by emotion. Lucien picked up his glass calmly. You understand fear very well for someone so young. No. Aaryan's voice remained even. I understand people. Again, that amused look appeared in Lucien's eyes. Sarah stood silently near the window now, observing both of them carefully. Because this conversation had already become abnormal. Lucien finally leaned back slightly. Very well. His crimson eyes sharpened subtly. Then let me ask directly. The atmosphere shifted again. Who gave you your blood? There it was. The real question. Not, who are you? What faction? What ability? Blood. Because ancient beings understood one truth better than anyone. Blood defined existence. Aaryan remained silent for several seconds. Thinking. Not emotionally. Strategically. Revealing too much was dangerous. But complete ignorance would also create suspicion. So, he chose partial truth. Someone who wanted me to grow stronger. Lucien's gaze narrowed slightly. Name. I don't have one. That wasn't entirely false. The ancient presence had never introduced itself directly. Lucien stared at him for several long seconds. Then, unexpectedly, he asked something else. Do you dream? Interesting question. Aaryan answered honestly this time. Yes. What do you see? The room became quieter. And for the first time tonight, Aaryan's eyes darkened slightly. A throne. Silence. Sarah's expression changed subtly. Lucien stopped smiling. Not because the answer was arrogant. Because it sounded genuine. Aaryan wasn't fantasizing. He meant it. Lucien slowly placed his glass down. That is an extremely dangerous answer. You asked. Again, that dangerous silence returned. Then Lucien laughed softly under his breath. Not mocking. Almost impressed. You know what's fascinating about humans? Aaryan stayed quiet. They dream beyond their limits. Lucien's crimson eyes held something ancient now. Something tired. Most beings lose ambition as they grow older. They become cautious. Predictable. A pause. But humans. A faint smile returned. Continue reaching upward even when they should know better. Aaryan understood immediately. Lucien wasn't insulting humanity. He was warning him. Or perhaps, testing him. Then Lucien asked, if I told you to stop growing stronger, would you? Aaryan answered instantly. No. No hesitation. No diplomacy. Just truth. The room's pressure rose sharply for a moment. Somewhere behind the walls, multiple blood signatures reacted. Guards. Strong ones. But Lucien lifted one finger slightly. The pressure vanished immediately. Interesting. Absolute authority. Lucien studied Aaryan carefully now. Longer than before. Then finally, he spoke quietly. You remind me of something. Aaryan said nothing. Lucien's gaze turned toward the city lights beyond the windows. 5,000 years ago. Sarah's eyes widened slightly. There existed a monster who believed the world itself belonged beneath him. The air grew colder. He was brilliant, beautiful, unstoppably ambitious. And eventually, Lucien's voice lowered slightly. He became strong enough that even gods feared him. Aaryan remained completely still internally. But the system screen flickered once. Only once. Lucien slowly looked back toward him. Do you know what happened to him? He lost. Lucien smiled faintly. No. The room became silent again. Then Lucien said quietly. He was betrayed. Something about those words felt heavier than expected. Ancient. Personal. Then, Lucian's expression returned to calm indifference, as though the moment never happened. Regardless, you're still weak. Aaryan didn't react emotionally, because it was true. Compared to rank 6, he was insignificant. For now, Lucian continued calmly. But your potential, pause, is troublesome. Finally, honesty. Then Lucian stood slowly. The moment he did, the entire atmosphere of the room shifted. Oppressive, elegant, monstrous. A reminder. This man was not human. Not remotely. Lucian walked toward the massive window overlooking the city, hands behind his back, then spoke without turning around. I should kill you now. Sarah stiffened immediately. Several blood signatures outside reacted sharply. But Aaryan remained calm. Not because he believed he could win, because panic would change nothing. Lucian continued. You're ambitious. You adapt too quickly. And most importantly, his crimson eyes reflected the city lights. You are not afraid. Silence. Then, unexpectedly, Lucian smiled faintly. Which is why I won't. Interesting. Very interesting. Lucian turned slightly toward him. Instead, I want to see what you become. The room remained silent after Lucian's words. I want to see what you become. For most people, that would sound merciful. To Aaryan, it sounded like interest, observation, investment, and that was far more dangerous, because powerful beings never watch something unless they expected it to matter later. Lucian returned to his seat calmly. The oppressive pressure faded slightly again. Relax, he said casually. Had I truly intended to kill you, this conversation would have ended already. Direct, confident, true. Aaryan understood the difference in power clearly now. Rank 6 wasn't simply stronger. It was another level of existence entirely. And strangely, instead of discouraging him, that realization only sharpened his focus further. So this is what waits higher above. Good. Lucian observed him carefully, then smiled faintly again. You're thinking about surpassing me already, aren't you? Aaryan answered honestly. Eventually. Sarah closed her eyes briefly, probably wondering whether Aaryan's survival instincts existed at all. But Lucian only laughed quietly again. Humans truly are entertaining. Then his expression shifted slightly more serious. Tell me something. His crimson eyes locked onto Aaryan's. What do you want? Not strength, survival, revenge. Something deeper. Aaryan thought for a moment, then answered calmly. Freedom. Lucian's eyes narrowed slightly. Aaryan continued. Money controls people. Power controls people. Fear controls people. A pause. I want to reach a point where nothing can control me. No dramatic speech. No fake heroism. Just honest ambition. And strangely, that honesty made the room quieter than before, because everyone there understood something. That kind of desire never stopped halfway. Lucian stared at him for several long seconds, then finally nodded once. A dangerous answer. You keep saying that. A faint smile appeared again. Yes. Lucian leaned back slightly. Because dangerous things tend to survive longer. Interesting philosophy. Then Lucian suddenly changed topics. You're attending university currently. Yes. Engineering. Not a question. Aaryan's eyes sharpened slightly. They investigated me thoroughly. Expected. Lucian continued calmly. And recently your academic performance improved dramatically. A pause. You've also begun appearing in several financial prediction reports. That one mattered more. Aaryan remained expressionless externally, but internally, focused. His small investment experiments had already been noticed, faster than expected. Lucian noticed the subtle shift immediately. Relax. He took another sip of wine. The Ashvale clan owns investment firms larger than some countries. Of course they did. Ancient factions surviving into modern society would naturally dominate finance eventually. Lucian's gaze sharpened slightly. You're intelligent, Aaryan. Which means eventually you'll understand something important. The room grew quieter again. In the modern world, his voice became colder. Money is simply another form of blood. That sentence stayed with Aaryan instantly, because it was true. Money fed influence, politics, armies, technology, information. Modern civilization simply hid power differently. And suddenly, Aaryan understood why ancient clans still ruled from the shadows. They adapted. Lucien smiled faintly upon noticing the realization in his eyes. Good. Then, unexpectedly, Lucien tossed something onto the table. A black metallic card. Minimalistic. Elegant. A gift. Aaryan picked it up carefully. No symbol this time. Only a silver line across the center. What is it? Access. Lucien rested his chin lightly against one hand. A private financial network. Interesting. Very interesting. You'll find opportunities there. A pause. And dangers. Naturally. Nothing valuable came without risk. Sarah looked genuinely surprised now. Even she clearly hadn't expected this. Because Lucien wasn't recruiting Aaryan. He was enabling him, which was arguably worse. Aaryan turned the card slowly between his fingers, thinking, then finally asked, "Why help me?" Lucien's answer came instantly. Because stagnation is boring. Silence. Then his smile returned slightly. And because I'm curious whether you'll become a king. The room grew colder. Or a catastrophe. Aaryan met his gaze steadily. Maybe both. For a second, Lucien genuinely laughed. Not politically. Not strategically. Genuinely. Even Sarah looked stunned again. Because almost nobody spoke to Lucien Ashvale this way. And survived. Eventually Lucien stood once more. This meeting is over. Aaryan rose calmly as well. But just before leaving, Lucien spoke one final time. A warning, Aaryan. The atmosphere shifted subtly again. Some doors in this world. His crimson eyes darkened slightly. Should never be opened. A pause. And some bloodlines. For the first time, Lucien's calm expression became unreadable. Should never return. The system flickered violently for a single second. Then stopped. Interesting. Very interesting. Aaryan said nothing. But internally, something clicked into place. Lucien knew something. Not everything. But enough to react instinctively. Which meant one thing. The vampire god's existence was far more terrifying than Aaryan initially realized. Outside the estate, cold night air greeted them immediately. The massive mansion stood silent behind him. Elegant, predatory, ancient. Sarah walked beside him quietly toward the car. For once, she seemed genuinely thoughtful. Finally, she spoke softly. Lucien never gives people opportunities. Aaryan looked ahead calmly. Then maybe he sees value in me. Sarah glanced at him briefly. No. A pause. He sees danger. Interesting. Aaryan smiled faintly. Same thing. Sarah stared at him for several seconds. Then quietly looked away. Because the terrifying part was that he actually believed it. And deep inside, she was beginning to believe it too.